Every year, more than 600,000 people walk out of jails and prisons in America. We incarcerate more people than any nation on the planet, but not everybody comes home successfully. And I think it makes sense for people to get an idea of what steps they can take today to position themselves for a better outcome. And I'm going to give contrast two stories. One of them is a real name, one of them is not a real name. The first one I want to talk about is Halim Flowers. Now, Halim Flowers is a friend of mine, and you can see profiles of him on the Prison Professor's Talent website. I featured him right on the home page. Halim Flowers went to prison as a very young man. By the time he was 16 years old, he was convicted of crimes that led to a double life sentence when he was 16 years old. I mean, he hadn't even been old enough to drive, or to, I shouldn't say to vote, or to do a lot of the things that most of us take for granted. Because at 16, he was put inside of an institution. He was facing a sentence of double life, or rather that was what he was sentenced to, double life. He had to do the first 2 years in a juvenile detention facility, and then he would transfer to a high security penitentiary. At that time it was USP Lewisburg, where he began serving this double life sentence. But at some point during his journey, Halim Flowers recognized that he could do better, that he wanted to do better. And as he started to mature, he decided to focus on educating himself, on developing skills, on figuring out ways that he could be of value to society. And through that path, he earned his GED, he developed skills as a painter, he developed skills as a writer, as a poet, as somebody who could bring attention to the world. And he continued to move through high security penitentiaries, whether it was Lewisburg, or I think it was Allenwood, and then Leavenworth, or various penitentiaries, until eventually, after he'd been in for about 15 years, he went to the federal prison in Atwater, California, where he met Warden Mavusian. Now, I know Warden Mavusian. I knew him when he was a captain in a prison where I was held during my journey. But at that time, Warden Mavusian had taken an approach of wanting to develop innovative programs that would help people inside prepare for success outside. And in fact, it was Warden Mavusian who first brought prison professors into the Bureau of Prisons. And it's what launched our course, which is now known as Preparing for Success After Prison, into every federal prison as a First Step Act approved program. So people who go through that program now earn credits that can result in advancing their release date. So Warden Mavusian, but at that time there was no First Step Act. But Warden Mavusian recommended to Halim that he work through our programs. And Halim read the books and did his own thing, and he'd already been on his own path, but he begins memorializing the journey of all the steps that he has taken. He starts building a coalition of people who would advocate on his behalf. While I and my team began working to advocate for changes in the system that would lead to the First Step Act, that would lead to other opportunities for people to work toward earning freedom through merit, not through the turning of calendar pages. And several years passed. Halim had written to me from prison and said he wanted to follow the same path that I was on and build a pathway for himself, and he did. And the law changed. And when the law changed, he was able to petition the court for an opportunity to take another look at his sentence after he had already served 22 years. And after he served 22 years, a judge agreed that further incarceration was not appropriate, and he allowed him to go home. And when he went home, he received a grant from people who helped him, organizations that believed in all of the work that he did while he was inside. And they offered him a grant that helped him to start building his career. And he began selling his paintings that he would sell, and writing books or selling the books that he wrote while he was in prison, trying to help build more awareness on the injustices of mass incarceration. And through that process, he became an advocate of international, worldwide, global influence. But it all started, he told me, when he visited the Apple store. And after he made his presentation, a fella asked him, I really like what you're doing, Halim. Are you doing anything else? Because Halim was there, Apple had invited him to go give a presentation on his books. And Halim said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I am. He said, what is it that you're doing? He said, well, I'm painting these pictures that show the pathway from the projects and poverty to the penitentiary, and I'm working to change that. And the guy said, well, are your paintings for sale? And Halim said, yes, they are for sale. And he said, well, how many do you have? And Halim said, I have 12. The guy said, well, I'm going to take them all. And Halim said, I'm selling them for $2,500 a piece. And the guy said, that's fine, I'm going to take them all. And Halim was just blown away because all of a sudden it was this big windfall of an income. And the guy said to Halim, he said, well, you're in San Francisco. Would you like to, I live here. How would you like to go to the Warriors game with me? And Halim said, no, I don't want to go to the Warriors game. And he said, well, why not? And Halim responded, well, I don't like the Warriors. And he said, well, who do you like? And Halim said, I like the Lakers. And the guy says, well, the Lakers are coming to town in a couple of weeks. He said, why don't I fly you back out, stay at my house, and we'll go to the Lakers game together. And Halim said, yeah, I could do that. That'd be great. And the guy says, by the way, I own the Golden State Warriors. And so it was just this amazing story of how you work really hard for a long period of time and people start to recognize you and they recognize the value that you could bring to society. And Halim said he went to the game with this guy and they're sitting on courtside seats and he says, now I want you to know something. I'm a businessman. I'm not a philanthropist. And I didn't buy those paintings from you out of charity. You see those ball players out there? They're the best in the world at what they do. Everybody here, this is called Billionaires Row. Everybody on this row, they're the best in the world at what they do. I brought you here because I don't ever want you to feel intimidated when you're around these people. You went through prison. You've had a double life sentence. And instead of whining and complaining and being a victim, you found a way to create value. And because you created value, you earned your freedom, and now you're out here, and I want you to be successful. And anybody can Google Halim Flowers or visit his website, and you will see how successful he has been. That's why I love to use Halim as an example of somebody who is pursuing excellence and what does it really mean to earn freedom. And I'd like you to contrast that with somebody else that I don't want to use his real name because it's not as great of a story. This guy's name, we're going to call him Dr. Sam. Dr. Sam was a surgeon. And he went to prison because of some bad decisions that he made during the course of his medical practice. He was charged with crimes related to healthcare fraud. And he was in prison for 3 years, not a double life sentence, but 3 years. And he found a pathway to go to a halfway house. The only way that Dr. Sam could get from the halfway house to home confinement was if he had a job. But there's not a lot of jobs available for people who have a felony background. And Dr. Sam thought it wouldn't be a problem. I mean, after all, he'd put himself through undergraduate school, he'd put himself through med school, he'd been a surgeon, he'd had a position of leadership before he'd had this one setback in his life, and he'd gone to prison. And while he was in prison, he didn't think there would be any challenges in coming back to society because he had overcome so many challenges in his life. But it wasn't so easy because the world isn't so friendly to middle-aged guys who come out of prison to take entry-level jobs. And after he was stuck in the halfway house for several months, he finally went to the case manager and said, hey, I'm really having a hard time getting a job. Maybe you could help me. And the case manager said, well, the only job lead that I have for you is at the 7-Eleven, which is across the street from the hospital where you used to be a surgeon. I'll take it, he said. What's the difference between Halim and Dr. Sam? Dr. Sam had all the credentials. He was skilled, he was well educated. By all means, people would have thought he would have been successful on the other side of the journey. He wasn't. Halim went to prison at 16 without an education, but he invested in himself and he built his life. And now he is a person of global influence. What's the difference? Halim spent his time in prison preparing. And that's what I would recommend you to do. If you're part of the prison professors community, now is the time to start preparing. Remember, I would never ask somebody to do something I didn't do. I'm never going to lie to you, and I'll never ask you to pay me a penny. Everything on Prison Professors is free. But somebody has to do the work, and that person is you. We are working to develop our nonprofit, to build relationships with the Bureau of Prisons, with the Pardon Czar, with opportunities with other nonprofits of influence so that we can advocate for you to go home. But you've got to do what Halim did. You've got to build your record. And that's why we built prisonprofessorstalent.com and why we fund it, so that you can memorialize all the steps you're taking to prepare for success. And if you do that, I think you're going to find more opportunities opening for you. I know that I would love to open more opportunities for you. And the one way that we can do that is by, if you look at prisonprofessors.org and you go to the top button up there where it says About, go to that page and click the down arrow, and you will see a section that says More, and you will see our leaderboard. You will see our impact page. You will see all the efforts that we are making every day to develop our machine to help more people in prison, and it's all free. On the leaderboard, whenever I do a webinar and I'm introducing our program, I show the leaderboard. You could be at the very top of that leaderboard, but you could only be at the top of the leaderboard if you work as hard as Halim. So start building your profile on prisonprofessorstalent.com. If you need information and prompts, just be a part of our community, because every day we produce new content with lessons that you could use. And you will see we've offered these self-directed questions. Those are designed to prompt you to begin building a more robust profile. The earlier you start working to build a record that shows that you're committed to living as a law-abiding, contributing citizen, the more effective you're going to be at coming home at the earliest possible time. I'll certainly work to build those bridges, but you have to work on building your own profile and building a record showing that you want to live as a law-abiding, contributing citizen. I am Michael Santos. I'm the founder of Prison Professors, and I believe in you. So be cool.